Good morning everyone and welcome to the Moneycontrol live stream. You're watching Markets with Santo and CJ. Well, we await a weekday on Dalal Street this morning following quite subtle cues from the US markets as well as the Asian markets this morning. If you look at the Nifty futures on SGX, they're indicating a sharp cut on Dalal Street while the Wall Street ended on a lower note after a very weak consumer confidence survey data for the month of June. So clearly, fears over economic slowdown and recession risk have again come back into the table after a few days of relief rally that we have seen on Dalal Street. Clearly, at this point of Santo, it seems like the bears are trying to make a comeback. But my one point would be that let's see the context at this point of time. Tomorrow is FNO expiry. The monthly expiry will happen for the June derivative series, and generally over the past 4 to 5 months, we have noticed this trend that the day before the expiry, we tend to see a good amount of short covering in the market because throughout the series, you would have bears been taking short positions on the market, and clearly that creates a situation wherein they have to square off their position ahead of expiry, and that tends to lead to a short squeeze in the market. So clearly, I think probably would want to wait out towards the second half of the session if we can see a comeback. But at this point of time, the start seems quite weak.
Yes, start seems quite weak, and I would slightly disagree with the point you made there, CJ.
Wow.
Fair enough that towards just the day before FNO expiry, you tend to see more of short covering of positions, and in general, because you've been seeing bears taking short positions over the last week or so, so some amount of squaring up should be quite natural. But I think a fair bit of covering has already come through, which is why you see the market kind of rally. And also remember, this sentiment is quite fragile, and the way US markets closed yesterday, once again it gives a it is a kind of an indication that probably the downtrend is again set to resume. The same kind of trend. Market falls sharply, then there is a pullback, but the next time market falls, it tends to retrace even further than where it had fallen the last time around.
I mean, this time, of course, we don't have that, that holy grail support of 15,672 as well. I mean, we have taken that out last time. So
exactly. So I think here probably the bears could be emboldened to, go short some more and maybe carry that positions forward. It's quite likely that way.
Well, Santo, I hope you are absolutely wrong, but let's see how it pans out over the next 6 hours. That said, individual stocks definitely will be in action. We have a list of 5 stocks starting off with
Delta Corp. Now, this is not a fundamental play at this point in time, CJ. It's more what caught my attention was that the stock has gone into FNO ban, which means that no more fresh positions can be taken up in Delta Corp till the market-wide position limits in that stock comes down below 95%. Now, I've been just looking at the overall futures build-up in Delta Corp. Now, typically, when before a stock goes into an FNO ban, you see a huge build-up in the futures positions.
Yes.
That's where people need to actually shell out real money to take positions. Whereas with options, at least for options buyers, it's easy for them to buy options by paying a small amount. But in the case of futures, you really need to put money
and
out
also
there.
have to put in cash margins as well.
Exactly. Now, if you look at the trend in Delta Corp, there's not been a huge build-up in open interest. In fact, it's been over the last 1 month, open interest position in fact has reduced, and the stock price has been under pressure though in the cash market. In the last 2 months, the stock price has more than
So you're saying there's been unwinding of long positions?
To some extent, there's been unwinding, but somehow the stock has been pushed into the FNO ban, probably by buying a lot of options out there, which means that it's difficult for fresh positions to be taken. So if you are short on the stock, probably you may have to reverse that position, but you can't go more. You can't take a further short position. So
you will probably have to wait till next 6 months.
Yeah, there's no fresh positions that can be taken. So I think, CJ, probably you could see a short squeeze in Delta Corp because tomorrow is expiry. But at the same time, that doesn't really change the fundamental story of Delta Corp.
So now your real point comes in.
Yeah. So even if there is a kind of a bounce back, just look at the signs. A is that some of the big investors have been trimming exposure to that. But the biggest overhang clearly has been that higher GST on casino and online gambling. That there's still no clarity on that yet. So that is clearly weighing on sentiment. And besides, the company had made announced that it is going to list its online gaming subsidiary. You saw a brief bump up in the stock price, but after that it just didn't sustain. You saw the stock price coming back.
How will it sustain if you're saying that certain people are trying to push it in the ban?
No, I think this is where you kind of allowed bears to keep going short and then suddenly, catch them at the last one. So at least the numbers seem to indicate that. How the stock price will play out, I don't know, CJ.
Well, Santo, I think in the near-term technicalities aside, I think longer-term the stock still looks quite compelling to me, especially after the sort of correction that it has seen over the past 6 to 7 months now. Yes, Jhunjhunwala was paring stake. Yes, other big investors have been paring stake, but clearly the fundamental side of the business has been improving at the same time. Yes, there was scare of a third wave earlier in the year and maybe a few weeks ago, but that has slightly and slowly and steadily abated. Now, I feel that, the listing of the gaming arm, I think, could be a good trigger for the stock going ahead, not only because it will probably unlock value in that subsidiary and aid overall market capitalization of Delta Corp, but at the same time, the company will be able to raise cash as well. I mean, they're expecting to raise almost 250 crores from the listing, so that should boost the cash position on the book and maybe investments going ahead. Apart from that, the opening of the new Goa casino, that should also improve the revenue visibility going ahead. So clearly, given that travel demand at this point of time, it has not shown any indication that it has abated, even though there are concerns that inflationary environment could scupper that theme. But at this point of time, I just feel that as long as the company keeps on performing on the earnings side, I think the stock price will eventually catch up, notwithstanding the technical issues that you have talked about. The second stock on my list today is ONGC. Now, yesterday, there was a good rally, almost nearly a 6% up move on ONGC. And why not? I mean, look at the stock. Despite all the, the positivity around oil prices, the stock has only risen 4% so far this year, Santo. And that makes me almost sort of angry that why the market is not realizing what everybody, around the world, even Warren Buffett is realizing. I mean, look at him. He's buying Occidental Petroleum, or oil producer, as if it's the next big thing in the world. And therefore, I feel that, with crude oil prices largely expected to sustain above the $100 per barrel mark over the next 12 to 18 months, I just feel that this is a very compelling earnings story that is just facing the market or staring the market on the face. If you look at the valuations also, at this point of time, it's very clear that market is expecting, according to this current stock price, it seems like market doesn't expect the average realization of ONGC to go beyond the $70 to $75 per barrel mark, which clearly is not going to happen if crude oil prices remain at the level that they are over the next 6 to 7 months. So clearly, this is one stock that is a compelling opportunity out there in the market. And Santo, this is not just me who is saying this, okay? One of the biggest market, asset managers and fund managers and a market veteran like S. Narain of ICICI Prudential had this to say about the oil companies or upstream theme to CNBC yesterday.
We've been big believers in upstream oil and as a sector. And when we look at shareholding patterns on upstream oil, what we find is people believe that we don't require oil to run our cars. Oil is not going to collapse. We believe that the government can actually declare very high dividends in many of these upstream stocks if they want revenues, because many of these stocks actually have very high earnings per share. They have fantastic balance sheets. So they can actually get revenues in the form of dividends if they want. And that is a decision that the government has to take.
So there you have it, Santo.
Exactly. I was about to say the same set of things. Fundamentally, everything seems to be in favor of ONGC at this point in time. The stock is available for almost less than.
Then why are you skeptical?
The skeptical is that, see, the market is skeptical. You just look at the way the stock price has been performing. Couple of reasons here. A, there is no transparency on how much ONGC benefits even if crude prices are rising. At some point in time, you hear chatter about windfall tax or subsidy sharing and all those things suddenly. So
subsidy era is gone, my friend.
Yeah, you may think so. Then why are oil marketing companies bleeding? Obviously it is not gone entirely. So here, it seems to be a case where nobody is really benefiting. Investors are not touching the oil marketing companies either because they are running losses on the under recovery. At the same time, you're not seeing ONGC go up either. So I think probably, CJ, this could be a trading bet. There may be some upside still. Fundamentally, it looks very attractive. Overall, if the market continues to go the way it's going, I think ONGC still makes a good bet. But I would say a trading bet collect your gains and probably just scoot.
Well, if the outlook on oil market stays the way it is for the next 18 to 24 months, Santo, I think people who are looking at it as a trading bet will miss out on a big opportunity.
Well, third stock is Sun TV. Again, a similar set of points that I'd made for Delta Corp. The stock is in FNO ban now. Again, CJ, very interesting. You know, there's some huge selling in the Sun TV stock just a couple of days back.
Despite, I mean, that is just the mind.
Despite the relief of it not having bagged the IPL rights.
Yeah, not only that, but you know, you've seen the sort of. I mean, I'll make that point later as well. But please continue.
Yes. So again, the stock has moved into the FNO ban, which means that no fresh positions can be taken. And at this point, it does seem that there are more of short positions in the futures, or rather, too many people seem to have gone short on Sun TV at this point. But at the same time, you've not seen a big futures build up again in the run up to this kind of a ban. Usually, there is a big run up. There's a huge increase in our open interest.
Yeah.
We have not seen that this time. So this again, I feel, is a case of where some traders would have come together, bought a lot of options, and then kind of pushed the stock into the FNO ban at this point. Again, fundamental side not looking great at all. Company has not been able to, you know, really scale up its OTT offering, which is where the real battle is being fought, given that there are still some uncertainty over the new tariff order, and they really can't hike advertising the subscription rates at this point in time. And at the same time, you know, very tepid earnings, and yet the promoters are taking a lot of cash out of the company by way of salary. FIs, institutional investors are unhappy about it. They protested, and yet they went ahead. So this stock, there's an overhang of corporate governance issues as well. Valuations are pretty reasonable. I mean, if you were to just put everything aside and look at the valuation, then this is a compelling buy. But again, for all the factors mentioned, I don't see the stock really doing well in the short term, despite a short squeeze that you could see in the stock.
I mean, thank God for the short squeeze. If it does come today, that will be brilliant. But apart from that, I think overall also, even if you look at it from a 6 to 12 month perspective, I just feel that a risk reward is just too compelling, especially in the wake of, you know, the sort of earnings boost that its IPL team, Sunrisers Hyderabad, is going to get after the recent IPL media rights. I mean, that's clearly going to boost its valuation, the company's valuation, by a good 20 to 30% going ahead. So I think taking that into account itself, I just feel that the current stock price seems a bit too low, a bit depressed. On the fundamental side, on Sun TV's own side, I feel that advertisement sales would be one thing that, you know, investors should watch out for. It is very likely that, given that if the margin pressures ease in H2, or we see the maximum pain on margins in H2 for FMCG companies and all, you would expect, especially with the monsoon season over, then you will start expecting a lot of FMCG companies to go out there and do more promotional activity. Clearly, the automobile sector is trying to get back on its feet, and you will expect that sector also to start getting into more marketing and promotional activity, given the number of launches that are lined up. So I feel that advertisement probably could be one side of business that could recover, even though the subscription side of the business remains under a little bit of a you know, dark cloud, given the lack of certainty around their new tariff order. Apart from that, another key trigger over the next, you know, 18 to 24 months could be the possible listing of Sunrisers Hyderabad, because the management has indicated in the past that they could look at a possible IPO or even a demerger of the company to unlock value. And I think if that happens, that could clearly be a very good trigger for Sun TV going ahead. So overall, the fundamentals seem quite decent. I don't think they beg the sort of valuation that the company is being getting from the market at this point of time. But clearly, it doesn't seem like this is just the market's doing. It seems like there are other sort of, you know, technical factors behind the sort of depression that we are seeing in the stock price, and I would expect that to correct over the longer term. Next stock on my list is Santo Route Mobile. They have come out with a buyback. Well, it seems like the buyback season is well underway on Dalal Street this month. So the company is going to buy back shares worth about 120 crores at quite a hefty premium of 28% to yesterday's closing price. Santo, that really should give a boost to the stock in today's session. Apart from that, if you look at the amount of cash that the company is using, they are utilizing almost 30% of the cash they have on book. As of March 22, they had about 407 crores of cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet. So that is clearly a positive, but it also shows that they have still enough arsenal to go and do a smaller buyback in maybe another 12 months or 18 months time. And I think that given that the fact that Route Mobile has undergone a lot of correction because of the overall technology platform, tag that the company has. Clearly, the promoters feel that the value that the market is giving is not justified, and they're trying to return cash to the shareholders because probably they don't have that many opportunities out there for growth in terms of a sort of acquisition or internal, investment, and at the same time providing a good support to the stock. So I would expect that the stock would react positively to this, and then over the next 12 to 18 months, you could see maybe another potential buyback happening once the lock-in period ends, and this could overall boost the EPS as well and the ROE as well going ahead.
Well, just a few observations there. CJ, the stock is just recently listed, and already it started returning money to its shareholders. I would say that it's kind of neither here nor there. The buyback is not so huge enough. There could be a bump up, but yesterday again, if you see, the stock immediately fell. It didn't really participate in the pullback rally. Well, there we have the market opening at 150 points down. Nifty 1300 stocks are down on the NSE compared to 430 which are up. Nifty Bank is also down about 1%. Rupee has hit a record low. I think that's where all the problems are arising from.
Yeah, CJ. I mean, it is the FIIs who's selling keeps on continue. And if you look at the broader market as well, Santo, a deep cut in small cap space, down about 1.5%. Nifty Small Cap 100 Index. And the Nifty Mid Cap 100 Index is also down about 0.7%. So the mid cap stocks are still holding fort, but it's the small caps that are seeing the majority of the selling this morning, and that is why you can see that the advanced declines ratio is so negative at the opening minutes of this session.
Well, the last stock on our watch list this morning is Asian Paints. Now, the stock again came under some bit of pressure yesterday. It was right, when the market as a whole was rallying, you've seen some volatility in the stock over the last few days. Now there's this debate whether is it an attractive buy at these levels. In fact, many are still saying that the correction kind of affords an opportunity, but I don't think it's so much about the dominant market position. I don't think there is any threat to that. The whole theory was that the company's margins, it will be able to maintain its margins consistently. The growth will continue at the same pace as it has been in the past. I think those two theories are under a bit of doubt, especially with the entry of Grasim. So while there's been some analyst reports now again kind of pushing for a buy on the stock, I'm still a little skeptical about it, CJ. Well, this is not a market that supports stocks with very high valuations.
I think, Santo, in the case of Asian Paints, you cannot look at absolute valuations. You have to always look at it on a relative basis. Therefore, I feel that when you're trying to gauge whether a proper correction has happened in Asian Paints, you have to look at where the long-term average or long-term average valuation of the stock has been, and then you compare it with the current going average or going valuation. So I feel in that case, I think there has been a meaningful correction in a stock like Asian Paints. Remember, this is a high cash generating company, has a very strong moat. The competition intensity is rising in the sector, but a lot of analysts, if you talk to them, they are very confident that Asian Paints dominance will not go away. It is not like that tomorrow, Grasim will enter the industry and will straight away become number one. That will not be the case. It will mostly
Grasim is not planning either. It
yeah,
said
but it will mostly be that smaller players will be the one losing up, and I think you could see a sort of similar sort of scenario that we had seen in telecom sector, where ultimately it was Bharti Airtel who was the number one player, now becoming the top two dominant players in the industry. So I feel Asian Paints probably market has exaggerated or overreacted to the entire competition buzz. Apart from that, the margins also should be able to sustain, in my opinion, because the company has started to take calibrated price hikes. Earlier, they were not taking price hikes. They were absorbing the high input prices because they did not want to lose volumes. They did not want to lose market share. But now, because they have now, solidified that side of the business, they are now looking at price hikes, and probably margins will continue to improve over the next 2 to 3 quarters.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets with Santo and CJ. Thank you for watching, and do share your comments in the feedback section below.
And as usual, follow us on the social media links at the bottom of your screen. And for rest of your financial news, stay tuned to Moneycontrol.com and download the Moneycontrol app. We'll catch you live again at 3 p.m. with all the day's action. Till then, have a great trading session.